Hey YouTube, how's it going? Torsar here with another sports talk video. Today I want to get right into it, so I hope you enjoy the video. This is going to be the one that I promised, well, one of the ones I promised I'd start getting back into some more NFL. Nothing really important outside of the actual games themselves to talk about in the NBA currently, so this is a good time for it. Got some good series, hopefully they get extended a little bit longer. Couple 3-1s, couple 3-2s. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully, they provide me some content to make a video later in the week. But for now, I'd like to talk about the NFL, specifically what was the most important transaction so far this NFL offseason. Now, to start off, let me set the boundaries. This is going to be a single transaction. This isn't going to be someone's entire draft. You can take one draft pick, which I'm going to go to the draft list real quick because I think this really just boils down to the three QBs that were taken in the top four picks. And then any other singular transaction, which it's pretty much, you guys know who it's going to be. It's going to come down to two people, in my opinion. And wait till later. If you want to keep watching, I'm going to give you my answer, who I think it is. But that's Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets. And then also, normally, I wouldn't include a re signing, but I'm going to include one. And you probably know who I'm going to talk about, but we'll get to that. So let's go to the draft real quick. Okay, so Bryce Young out of Alabama went to the Panthers. C.J. Stroud out of Ohio State went to the Texans. And then Anthony Richardson out of Florida went to the Colts. Now, if one of these guys, and also let me just put in this other caveat, I'm only talking about next year. If you want to talk about long term, you can make the case for any one of these guys. But these college QBs, it's so hard to tell what they're actually going to be in the NFL. No one saw Patrick Mahomes coming, at least not how good he was going to be out of college, or else he would have been the overwhelming number one pick. No one even saw someone like someone else I'm going to talk about later on. I'm going to hold this little mystery. Hopefully this will, stick around and find out. But some of these QBs, a lot of these QBs, heck, you want to even go to Josh Allen. Usually we don't see quite how good they're going to be. Not everyone's a Peyton Manning coming out of college. Heck, probably the greatest player of all time in Tom Brady. Obviously, no one saw him coming out of college. So how these QBs are going to be, the only thing different from back in the day, you had to wait a little while. Now they play him right away. But I mean, the Texans, they're just a moribund franchise. They're completely awful. Is C.J. Stroud really going to turn them around? Because when I say what's the most important transaction, I'm talking about who's going to take them over the top, get them not just into the playoffs, but potentially into the Super Bowl, have a chance, because that's what all these teams' goals are at the beginning of the year, is to win their division, hopefully, but if not, get into the playoffs, and then compete in each game for a chance to play in the division championship and represent their conference in the Super Bowl. Or sorry, they'll play in the conference final and represent their conference in the Super Bowl. So is Bryce Young, is he that good where he's all of a sudden going to take the Panthers into the playoffs? Even Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville, it took him 2 seasons and to finally get a good coach. This is going to be a new coach. The Texans, like I said, the Colts, new coach, and Anthony Richardson, by all accounts, seems to be a project player. So who knows, out of these three, he's probably the most likely to not play next year, or at least for part of the season. So personally, I don't think it's going to be any of those three guys. So then we have Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets. Now, the Jets, very good last year, obviously only missing one player at one position, and that was the QB. Their QB play was horrible last year, and they just barely missed the playoffs. They had the offensive rookie of the year, the defensive rookie of the year. They're a well-coached team under Robert Saleh. So, do you think Aaron Rodgers is going to be that important that he's going to, some people are saying, oh, it's Super Bowl or bust next year for the Jets. I don't look at it like that. They're a New York team. If the only way it would be Super Bowl or bust is if you told me right now Aaron Rodgers is only playing one season for them. Then with the picks they gave up for him, yes, it probably you could make the case it's Super Bowl or bust. But I'm not going to assume that. I'm going to assume he plays for at least 2 more years. So if they go make a deep playoff run or even go to the Super Bowl and lose it like the Eagles did this last year, is that a failure of a season? Because we forget, looking back after the winner's been declared, how much of a boon just your team making it is for those cities. Like, look at all those years LeBron went. When he went back to Cleveland. Miami's one thing. There's plenty of things to do in Miami if the Heat aren't making the finals. But the Cleveland Cavaliers making the NBA finals, you know how much money that was worth to the city of Cleveland? So again, the Jets are a big town, or the New York is a big town, the Jersey area, right, down there, South New York, Northern Jersey, but it's also a huge magnifying glass, much more so than either of the examples I just gave with Cleveland and Miami, those cities. If you do well, especially for a franchise like the Jets, who hasn't had any success for years now, they're like the Knicks of the NFL. They have a huge fan base, an older fan base that's just craving to see their team get back there again. So if you can even get your team maybe to the conference championship or even the Super Bowl, even without a Super Bowl victory, I think that would be a very good season for the Jets. Now the question is, do I think he will take them there? I don't. I really don't. You look back at his postseason history, and it hasn't been that great besides that one Super Bowl run that was now, 13 years ago? He just always seems to flame out. Even last year in the quasi playoff game, that was the last game of the year versus the Lions, and you look at the QBs he's losing to. It's not like he's losing to these all-time great QBs. He's losing to Jared Goff and Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, yes, there's defenses behind it, but this is the way the NFL is now. We put guys up against their QB counterparts. These are the matchups. The QB just has so much focus. So, let's get to the guy who I've been holding back all this time. The other transaction who I think is the only chance to compete for this, which is the re-signing of Lamar Jackson. Now, you might say, well, other QBs were re-signed. What about Jalen Hurts? He's really important to the Eagles. I'm only including Lamar Jackson because it actually seemed like a chance that he could leave the Ravens, either being traded, well, most likely being traded. They're not just going to release him. But it actually seemed like that was a possibility. Most of these QBs getting re-signed, these star QBs, there's not a snowball's chance in where of them leaving their team. It doesn't get that contentious. This Lamar Jackson thing, the Ravens dragged their feet for whatever reason. They kind of gave him the Kirk Cousins treatment a little bit, even though he's not actually going to ever play under the franchise tag like Cousins had to. But for whatever reason, even though you could make a case for him being more valuable to his team than any other player in the NFL, even over Patrick Mahomes with Kansas City, for whatever reason, they dragged their feet. I don't know if it's the injury concerns, the way they have to tailor their offense. Maybe they find it too difficult. And maybe it just goes down to the fact that he was representing himself. And that just made it more difficult, maybe a little bit more people getting up in their feelings. But you see, and also maybe the advent of social media and how much it's impacting and integrating itself into sports, because back in the day you had to like actually seek out, go to ESPN, watch the specialty shows, especially in the off season. This always hasn't been a 365-day a year thing like it is now. So social media helps greatly with that. You might go on Twitter not even looking for anything about sports, and you see, oh, Lamar Jackson just said he requested a trade from Baltimore, and then you see his coach having to answer it 10 minutes after he makes the post, and the guys at the combine doing interviews, and they're like, oh, Coach Harbaugh, what do you think about Lamar Jackson just requesting a trade? And he's like, I didn't hear about that. I'll have to, whatever he said. I'm sure you guys heard it. If not, go look it up. It was kind of, I mean, he handled it well, but it's got to be kind of awkward. Like, he did what? Interview's over. You go to scramble. But anyway, I'm going to include that one because it really got contentious. And to start wrapping this up, that's my answer. I think out of any of the QBs that were taken in the draft, and Rodgers going to the Jets, I think above those is the re-signing and locking down Lamar Jackson. He's a combination of kind of he's the baby bear's porridge, It's not too hot like Aaron Rodgers towards the end of his career, not too cold like some of those new QBs coming in as fresh-faced rookies. He's right at the beginning of his prime. Maybe you could say he's starting to creep into the middle of his prime. He's only 27, but he was also an early bloomer. But he is, like I said, you could make the case he's more valuable to his team than anyone else in the NFL. And I think that was the most important singular transaction this NFL offseason. If you see their offensive numbers with and without him, there's just such a huge discrepancy. So, Lamar Jackson, good job holding your ground. Ravens, good job finally getting it done, doing the right thing. But time will tell. What do you guys think? Is it Rodgers? Is it Lamar Jackson? Is it one of the QBs, or maybe even one of the other draft picks you think somehow takes it over the edge? I didn't really see a non-QB that could have that potential in this year's draft. Maybe people think otherwise. Or some other transaction that I'm just forgetting about. Let me know. Anyway, until the next one, guys, stay safe, stay healthy. Peace.